Well, welcome to part 2. The second court case that Dr. Poland presented was Coulter versus Washington Township, and this is the Superior Court of New Jersey. This case dealt with an issue of parental notification of suspected cutting behavior by a middle school student. So this student was suspected of cutting in January, and the student saw the school counselor, and the counselor said the parent had been notified of the cutting. However, the parent said that she only found out about the cutting after the middle school child was hospitalized because of the cutting the next fall. And what we can learn from this is that documentation is a must. We have to document every conversation that we have with parents. The problem with this case is that the counselor didn't tell anybody. She didn't walk into the teacher's lounge and be like, yeah, I had this, I talked to the mom, that was good. Nothing. She didn't have it written down in her planner, called so-and-so's mom, talked about this. Nothing was there. And so we have to be able to have that documentation. Landmark cases that went with, that's not quite the right way to go with that. Landmark cases that Dr. Poland described to our session included the White versus Polk County School Board. And this is one of the only times that the court has ruled in favor of the parents. Dr. Poland said that suing a school is like suing the government. It's very unlikely that you're going to win, just because there are so many protections for schools against being sued in these libel services. However, the court did find the district liable in this case for providing inadequate supervision of a suicidal student and failing to notify his parents. You cannot wait until tomorrow if something happens at the end of the day. Another issue is that in this case, the assistant principal called the student in who had attempted suicide in the bathroom. He'd attempted to hang himself. A friend had dragged him down, told someone else. It was reported. The kid went home that day. No parents were informed. Nothing happened. The next day, the assistant principal called him in, and what different news sources said was assistant principal reads Bible verses to suicidal student. And this happened after the student once again went home and tried to kill himself. And so you can't do that. As an educator and just in general, if we have someone in that crisis situation, we have the duty to, 1, notify their parents, and 2, act immediately. We cannot wait until the next day. This was the first time ever in the history of law that parents won money from a school. Just because they were so out of touch with best practice in how to deal with these types of situations. Another landmark case is I'm really not sure how to pronounce this last name, but it's versus the Cypress Fairbanks School District, and this is in Texas, so relatively close to us. And this court found that the school had not negligently disciplined the student who died by suicide, and that the school was entitled to sovereign immunity. And this one gets to me a little bit because it's sad every time that a student takes their life, but it's especially sad when we as individuals in the schools don't adequately prepare or think about what it means for a student to be expelled and where that puts them in their headspace. So this case, this young girl, she's a middle schooler, She got in trouble for bringing drugs to school. And so at this district, that was an automatic, she was expelled. And so, she went in, talked to the county, the principal expelled her, and then she went home and committed suicide that very same day. The school won this case because their defense was there were no warning signs from the student. She wasn't outwardly depressed. She wasn't, acting, no notes, no anything to say that she would commit suicide when she went home. However, what we can learn from this case is that we must always have someone on hand to question students who are severely punished. We want to be able to question them about suicidality, about where their head is. We want to have a counselor standing by. We want to talk to the mom. In this specific case, the mom had come to the meeting and she took her daughter home and then she went back to work because, what else was she going to do? But, maybe we should instruct parents that when something major, some major disciplinary action takes place, that maybe they want to stay home with their kid that day and talk to them and be there. We want to make sure that even though we are telling a student that they can't come be in our school anymore, that we still care about them as an individual. And so that's a takeaway that we can take from the Cypress Bear Break School case. This next case, Boehm versus White Pass Schools. This is in Washington State. This specific case is about a question of competency. We have to seek out crisis training on our own. It's not offered through many of our course sequences. In fact, most of you are taking this class as an elective right now. But in this specific case, a 16-year-old male student was referred to a school counselor after he wrote a suicide note, and then there were rumors of a suicide pact. The student said, "No, I don't think about suicide," when interviewed, and he stated that he had a drinking problem, but he was now sober. How many of you think that a 16-year-old male in high school is telling the truth when he says that he doesn't drink or that he had a drinking problem, but he is now sober? Would you, in this situation, call parents after reviewing the following things that this counselor knew? This counselor knew that this student was new to the school. He'd only been there 5 weeks. So that means the student doesn't have necessarily those peer supports or those structures put in place, and many of those prevention pieces that we've talked about with the positive school climate and all of these things that this student doesn't have in this new place yet. The counselor also knew that the student's best friend had attempted suicide yesterday. So that just lends more support to the fact that there may have been a suicide pact. This student was also under stress, facing felony drug charges in court. This student got along well with his grandmother, who he now lives with, but he does not get along with his mother. And his grandmother has previously shared that his mother tried to kill herself last year. So we have a family history of suicide. And then finally, he reports that his mother thinks he'll probably kill himself. How many of those things serve as a protective factor for this child? How many of them are risk factors? One. He has one protective factor, and that is that his grandma loves him. So, what happens next? It's report card day. The student's not doing very good. He has some bad grades, and it's all really close in time to this suicide pact and potential suicide note. Grandma didn't know. The school didn't inform her about this. And so she and the student got into a huge fight about his bad grades, and he kills himself. What we learned from this is that, no, the school didn't cause the student to kill himself, but it did take away the one protective factor that he had. His grandmother, who loved him, when they got into a fight, 16-year-olds often think, it's all over. This is it. And so you took away that support, and grandma didn't even know. It is our responsibility to inform parents, always, even if we think we've got it handled in-house. Parents always have a right to know. Okay, I am going to make a next section. We'll start